A very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining in once again. For the ones who've joined in a little later, or at least on time, 2 p.m., we just have entered all the details of today's webinar on the chat window. There's a topic for today. It's a 1-hour CPD session. There's attendance link entered in there. So please make a note of it. Stephanie from our team will be sharing these details every 15 minutes once for the ones joining in a little later. The session is being recorded and it will be available on our YouTube platform as early as Monday. So let's get started. So yeah, topic once again, law office matter management. Earlier this year, I think we started off with client management. We've had expense management. We've looked into both office expenses and disbursements. And in the same series, I thought matter management would be helpful for all of you to understand what goes behind maintaining certain documents, whether it is compliance documents or client-facing documents, what are necessary in order to keep your matter well managed. Now, matter is nothing but a file. All of you know, in uLaw we say matter, but in general it is file matter management. So there's an agenda like every other webinar. We do have an agenda here for this webinar. Seems a little vast, but they're very simple to keep in mind. Your do's, don'ts, obligations, requirements, however you tend to remember it as. So we all know the process of client management, as I already mentioned, since we saw the client intake process, other things maybe a few weeks ago. In the same order, when it comes to matter management, where once the client intake is completed, the conflict check was done, you've decided to proceed with intaking, as in proceed with working on this file or a matter. What are the necessary steps you are required to take? That's point number one. Creating the matter and, remembering certain things to do is known as the first point you see here, matter creation and the steps. Now, in the same order, matter life cycle, when you start a matter, there are certain things we do which continues at every stage of that matter until the last, which is when you close the matter, which is where you mark the status, whether it's an active file, inactive file, closed, archived, the original status of this file and the matter, what's happening in there. Along with it, of course, we can never forget this part, compliance documents. After each matter is created, what are certain documents that you need to generate? What are certain documents that you need to, keep in order for your law society compliances? Certain client-facing documents like retainer letters, invoices, receipts, statement of summary or activity, whatever needs to be given to your client every now and then. If it's an ongoing file, how often do you give them? Every quarter, every month? If it's a short file, still you're obliged to do certain things. So we're going to see all those under law society requirements after you intake a matter. And disbursements, of course. What if there's some disbursement for the specific client? And the general trust and the general management, invoicing, trust transfers, If there's any retainer remaining in trust, how do you refund them? What are the documents you need to keep as a, track audit trail? And of course, what are the easier ways of docketing each time in the matter? What all I need to docket, what all I don't need to. The rates, taxes, etc., etc., etc. We're going to be seeing all this in the next 45 to 50 minutes, 1 hour technically. See how everything is organized for you to be organized. Now, it all starts with, of course, Law Society laying out the rules, saying these are your professional obligations, right from the time you intake a client to the time you finish a matter and say goodbye to your client. What are certain things that you're obligated to do? So when a client reaches out to you, very well, we all know the client intake process. Some of you might have a virtual intake process. Some of you might still follow the old school method where you meet the client and, ask them to fill a physical form and etc. So now the details and insights of all of these that happens in the first few visits or meeting needs to be recorded, and the consultations needs to be docketed somewhere. Either you're using a software like uLaw, or you're doing it manually, or you're keeping that track record using a simple spreadsheet. Whatever it is, it's a must to have detailed recordings of all your consultations, calls, correspondences, email exchanges. Everything goes in there, starting off with a detailed recording, then making sure, of course, you've completed a proper intake of your client with conflict check. You've arrived at how you're going to proceed with the financial matter of this particular client, whether you're going to deal them with a retainer-based, intake, or whether you're going to have them pay into a general account after the work is done. Determining the fees and structure is very, very important. All this obviously falls under client intake process, and providing them all the instructions in the retainer letters. If for some reason you don't continue with the client, you still provide them non-engagement letter. All of these are part of professional obligations, which are client matter management, of course. Now, when the intake is done successfully, you've laid out all the rules and regulations, your client has signed their agreement, you've proceeded with filing all the documentation, all the processes done. Now, you've come to a point where, okay, the preliminary stuff is done, so let me get to the actual work. Now, when you get to the actual work, there could be several things that could cross your mind with regards to docketing, invoicing, giving your clients update every now and then through correspondences, updating their matter status, if there are any disbursements, recording them spent on behalf of them, ensuring everything is complete in the order in which it has to be, especially, the file management, including the dockets for your phone conversation, emails sent, emails received, emails read. There are different ways these days people have, everything is advanced. Now it's up to you to follow very efficient practice that would help you achieve a great potential into your firm, into your business, ensuring that everything is, available for you in a single click, and all the necessary documents in a matter are available within minutes. And that's the, that's the kind of technology we're all using today. No one wants to wait, neither your client nor you. So how does everything work? How do I structure this? Now, you, like I said, you could use any way or any method to get this going, but follow a structure. Make sure you have decided on it well in advance before you start your practice or at the time you start your practice, but better late than never, right? So at any time of your practice, you have to ensure you're able to provide a very efficient matter management to ensure your practice is able to generate all the necessary receipts, invoices, documents that your client needs, you will need for your law society compliances, and of course, CRA and other regulatory authorities, etc. So a good matter management definitely starts off with a good client intake process. And a good client intake process, of course, you cover all the necessary documents, compliances, conflict checks, retainer letters, drafting agreements, ensuring you follow simple organization and management there with, recording all simple details, phone meetings, disbursements, whether you collected retainer, updating the status of the matter from time to time. Everything goes into managing your daily operations of your law practice. And, this will in turn provide you the outputs that you need in the form of either receipts to your client upon getting the payment from them, or raising an invoice to get a payment from them later on. And if you are going to raise an invoice, what needs to be in that invoice is decided by you, whether you're going for an hourly rate or you're going for a flat rate or block rate, whether you're going in for whether you're docketed all the information you've exchanged with the client, completed the work on, etc. So you will have to frame a practice method that helps you achieve its potential with the necessary set of documents that you need. Of course, the file management works well with a checklist. So make sure you make your own checklist from the day one. Of course, if you're using uLaw, you guys can find the file checklist right under the matter, under compliance tab. You will find the file checklist in there. But for the ones who are not using uLaw, if you're attending the CPD, you're here to know these details. File checklist is, of course, available on your respective law society portals. I'm sure you'll be able to arrive at a decent checklist with all the details that you needed to show up on your files or in your matters. Confirming you've completed conflict check is like step one. Many times we rush into creating matters without even doing a conflict check, which is absolutely wrong. I don't think you should rush in without spending that a minute or two by completing the conflict check and making sure there's no conflict with this prospective client of yours, and ensuring you've created files for the same client could have two files. If you're a real estate lawyer, the same client could have a purchase and a sale. And how do you create two different names of the same client, or do you just maintain them separately? You need to arrive at all of those and make sure that whichever practice management you're using or whichever is your method of practice, ensure that you maintain separate files for the respective matters, and they're chronologically organized, secured. You have backup. If you're the electronic files, making sure whether they're on your cloud or in your drive or wherever it is, making sure you're having all the documents and details of this client arranged, organized in a chronological manner, and ensuring that the client interactions, the correspondences that you have with the client are recorded somewhere, and that you're able to organize everything through cross-indexing, and you've given a file number of your own. You are the program could give a file number, but at the end of the day, you're able to identify and give a cross-indexing to each of these files. So a proper file management will enhance the service towards the client, making client more happier with all the minute details, and it'll help you in turn to keep a better track of the client. So while you're in the first few stages of your client interaction, making sure that your client intake is completed well and the matter management began with the proper file management, like we discussed in the previous slide. Slowly it goes into making a retainer agreement, collecting retainer, starting the work. Now, at this point in time, when you're framing the retainer agreement, there are certain things, again, for you to keep in mind, right from the time, the scope of work, including the scope of work, your responsibilities, scheduling the course of action, making sure all the method of communication and how frequently you'd like to communicate, everything is being entered in. And the responsibilities of you and your client, whether there's a retainer involved in here, whether it's for a flat rate file or whether it's for a billable time. All of these small details matters a lot, goes a long way, gives better clarity to the client and for you when you're being asked by Law Society or by an auditor, or even for your own purposes, for your internal audit purposes, internal purposes. You know what this client was obliged to do, your obligations, their obligations, both your responsibilities. And end of the day, the risk factor that is associated with these types of documents are going to be much lesser if you are on day one at a very clear picture. You have a very clear picture and you have a clarity of the communication methods and of course, the other course of action or representation involved in here. So creating a retainer agreement, if you're, of course, someone who practices with trust account, gets money into trust as retainer, it's very important that you include these points in your retainer letter and agreement and make sure you follow them when you are taking the client, establishing the matter. That way it's well managed. Now, when you have determined your legal fee and structure, disbursements also plays a little role in there. I don't know how many of you talk about disbursements on your retainer letter, but it's pretty important if you haven't had, because disbursement forms part of your invoice structure or invoicing, and it in turn, of course, forms part of your legal fee and other reimbursements, which are to be, of course, entered the very first time in your, let's put it this way, in your agreement, in your retainer agreement. So deciding the type of disbursements and, in common, there are certain types of disbursements, whether they are made from trust or general, whether it's going to be outsourced work, whether you're going to be recovering these expenses from the client, with profit, without profit, for your travel, for photocopies, specifying what would be the method of payment, the nature of expenses, etc. about the disbursement. They're very important, making sure that you give your client a clear picture of, again, what is happening in this side of billing and other things. When it comes to which is going out of trust, which will be going out of you would be spending on behalf of them and collecting the money later on. So whether it's their part of the retainer or not, needs to be clearly entered in those retainer agreement. So making sure that the disbursements, you also touch upon disbursements during this period, where you are talking about the retainer, other things. I can see a few questions on the webinar. I think Steph is taking care of these. For the ones who joined a little later, thank you all, first of all, for joining and taking time to join. Today's topic is law office matter management. We are almost 20 minutes into the webinar. We've covered a few details on basics of matter management. It's a 1-hour CPD session. The attendance links are being entered here every 15 minutes once. So please keep an eye on the chat window for getting the details on today's topic, attendance link, etc. It's a 1 hour of professional CPD. It's not a substantiated hours. I request all of you to make a note of that, the topic, and give your attendance on the link provided in the chat window. All right, so we kind of know now what are the things that needs to go into your retainer letter. What are the things that you will have to follow at the time of client intake, matter management, for better matter management, recording dockets, organizing the file, making sure you have better disbursement management, and updating your status of the matter from time to time. Of course, following a file checklist. Make your own file checklist or take the one given out by Law Society, and ensuring you prepare retainer agreement, keeping in mind all the terms and conditions that you'd like to lay it out on the very first day when you talk to the client, when you are about to begin the work. Make sure you've included all the points that you see here that are going to be later on risks in the picture, making sure you bring them all in one agreement. So that way you're able to cover all of them, making sure all of you are on the same page. And of course, when you talk about disbursements, the types, the way it's going to be reimbursed, and how it's going to be spent, etc., of course, needs to be there on the retainer agreement. And moving towards the Law Society compliance documents, what do we need for keeping you compliant in terms of matter management? Of course, once we intake the client, we do collect certain documents from them. We are very, very sure that the very basic document is a client ID verification. So have you verified the client? Have you confirmed it's really them? You get a driver's license or a passport or whatever their Ontario ID or whatever is their province ID that they have. Making sure the client ID is verified. You have a copy of it in your folder. The client has completed the intake form. You've captured all sort of information on the intake form. Now, if you're using uLaw, of course, you have intake form readily available there. If not, please visit the website of your own Law Society for your province. Make sure if you're making your own intake form, make sure you're following all the fields that is required in a client intake form. And of course, ensuring the retainer agreement is entered with all the responsibilities or prepared with all the responsibilities. When you collect the retainer, you issue the receipt to the client, and a conflict screening document is also created along with the conflict check. Now, there's a thin line of difference between both. So conflict check is when you are checking conflict for just your client, but when conflict screening, the associated parties with the file will also be screened, making sure they don't have any conflict. So this forms part of the conflict resolution document. And non-engagement letter for the clients who have not come back or who are termed as ghost clients. Sometimes we have people coming into our office or giving us a call and giving their information, but they wouldn't turn back or they wouldn't come back to you for some reason. Making sure that later on they shouldn't a few months or few weeks later, they would say, oh, you know what, I thought I gave you a call the other day and I shared everything about my issue, and I've not heard back from you. I have no action from you, but now I have a hearing posted. I have nothing, I have no information, and how do we proceed? And then you had no idea that the client has been waiting to, hear back. There could be some scenarios like this. How do you handle them? So in order to, in fact, avoid such scenarios, of course, if they are really interested, the correspondence would be totally different. But in this case, you're encouraged or you're recommended to give a non-engagement letter. Sometimes engagement letter is what we're all more worried about, but I would say it's the other way around. You should be more worried about the non-engagement letter as well, because you don't want the client to come back and pinpoint you like what just gave us an example. So making sure that non-engagement letter has to be given out to the clients who are ghost clients, and regular invoicing and sharing the statements with the client makes a lot of difference. It goes a long way. Of course, your client is being constantly advised and kept intact with what is happening in the matter, the status of their matter, updating them from time to time with the statement of activity and settlement, accounts, bill of costs, summary, whatnot. I mean, of course, all of these are available in one click in uLaw under statements in the matter page. But for the ones who are not using, again, please follow your Law Society portal to update all these information in the records or in the portal that you're using. Make sure that all the settlement statements, final statement of accounts are also provided to the client. If it's an ongoing matter, let's say it's a family matter going on for over 2 years now, you want to make sure that you're giving your client a regular update, how regular it is, at least a quarterly update of their statement from trust, general, ensuring everything is provided to them so that they get a fair idea of what is happening in their matter or file. And don't stop there. I mean, like, go a step further, like how you would engage your client with a nice client intake form. Give them a disposition letter or a closure letter. Make sure they are aware that their matter comes to an end finally. So they get an idea of what has happened in there, and that you wrapped it up with a nice closure letter and given to them. So that way you're giving them a good farewell, thanking them that they've given you this opportunity. So coming back to it, make sure that please include small things such as non-engagement letter and closure letter, and giving a retainer receipt and confirming there is no conflict. These are all making your practice a little better and, of course, making you more compliant with Law Society. Now, how often do I reach my client? I have this file ongoing for probably 6 months now, 1 year now, 8 months now. How often do I communicate with them? See, there's no such thing where you're only allowed to communicate with your client these many times, but this is what you are laying out as responsibilities on your retainer agreement and client intake form, making sure that on a quarterly basis at least you're going to review their matter, give their documents, and all of these that the Law Society recommends are done on the annual basis, such as statement of accounts, summary, and settlement statement, trust plus general account ledger. All of this is sent to them. So on a quarterly basis, there's receipts, their bill of costs, summary, all of these are sent. So There are certain documents that you need to send at regular time intervals, so you're well aware of these and making sure you send them if it's an ongoing client, of course, or ongoing matter. And make sure your invoices, receipts carry all the details of your, let's say, your tax number. Many of us raise an invoice with a tax number on it, without a tax number on it, but it's not okay to do that. You could have charged your client the taxes, but you need to give them your tax number. So make sure you are entering necessary details as per the guidelines into the invoice, receipts, bill of cost summary, statement of accounts, whatnot. There are a whole bunch of these statements called client-facing documents, client fee book, aging report. Of course, fee book is going to give idea to the client that this is the fee you charged them and in this period of last few months, and then the aging report, making sure these are the unpaid invoices, accounts payable, of course, that's aging report. Aging report is available for accounts receivable also. So in this case, it's accounts receivable because let's say your client owes you a certain amount and it's shown on the aging report. A yearly update of statement of accounts, settlement statement, and final, when you're done with the matter, when you're closing it, when you're giving them a closure letter, give them a settlement statement, tell them your final settlement statement, which gives you activities and legal fee, what has happened in there, the dockets, invoices, disbursements, receipts, retainers, trust transfers. They're all available to your client in a nutshell. So that's the settlement statement. It's available again in the matter. If you're someone who's using uLaw, under matter, under statements, you'll find settlement statement, which will give you end-to-end what has happened in there from the time you've opened a matter. And this is very important if this is an ongoing matter to bring to your client's notice what has happened in the last few days, weeks, months, and a final closure letter. And it's nice to also give them some season greetings every now and then, brand your firm with a logo, letterhead, get all these, your contact info, promotional stuff, everything into the invoice header, as a letterhead or as a footer, whatever, wherever you want on the invoice. And make sure you have a very nice invoice sent out to them with all the other details. That way you're capturing everything you need to be passed on to your client. So these are very basic, but these are very important as well, because not many of us are able to, complete all of these. Sometimes it would be left halfway through. That's where the file checklist comes into play, or it plays a role here. So it comes into picture rather. You're able to take an idea, get an idea as to whether you've missed maybe a quarterly report, bill of cost. Okay, so you're going to go back to your file checklist and check them off and send it to your client. So that way you're at par. You're able to definitely proceed well, right? Likewise, some quarterly documents, these client-facing documents play a major role when it comes to, because it gives a sense of security to your client, and that's what Law Society wants, because Law Society is there to govern common people, make sure that they're being treated fairly, and that all the details are being provided to them at the time their services are being rendered. So make sure whether there's any additional parties, whether there are court forms included, they're all shown and submitted into the respective forms, and you're able to manage the client relationships, whether there's a joint retainer, plaintiff, defendant, respondent, applicant, all your co-workers as group of contacts, vendors, all of these needs to be organized. If you're using uLaw, you'd see that there's a tab specifically for add new client, but there's also a tab for add new contact. I don't know how many of you add other contacts into your program or into software or into your database, but it's very important to add other contacts such as co-workers, vendors, plaintiff, defendant. There's so many other additional parties that might be related to a file, and it'll come handy at the time when you've added their contacts or contact information already. That way, representatives can be added, opposing counsel can be added. Once you manage the client relationships into the matter, you can incorporate them into the forms, whether it's a code form or any other form. They are auto-filled. So that way it saves you a lot of time. And when it saves you time, your practice is more efficient and you're able to generate these documents in no time. So please make sure that the additional parties are also addressed and taken care of. Sometimes we only bring the main party into the picture, but the additional parties are left out. But there's so many code forms that look for additional party information. There's so many other forms that needs additional party information. So make sure that you're adding them on time to time and you're able to enter these information in there. What are matter analytics? Matter analytics, of course, your client's data about your client's matter. There's several things that we might overlook, we might tend to miss in our busy day at work, busy day at business. We might forget to collect payment, we might have an outstanding, we might have, a lot of expenses against the fee received. We might have very less margin. You want to see how your health of business is. You might not see the timeline. There's so many things that forms part of this. So you will have to make sure the matter status and trust and general accounting are all in track. So ensuring that the matter analytics, there's a separate tab in uLaw for matter analytics. I don't know, again, how many of you use. Sometimes our life's so busy that we tend to just jump from, let's say, matter to contacts to accounts to reconciliations. But we all need to pause for a moment and understand that there are more things than just reconciliations and accounting and other things. But, of course, it forms part of this matter management. This is where your matter analytical information comes into picture. This is where you'll be able to visualize the data better. This is where we'll be able to understand the health of the firm. Where we are doing really good, we might be thinking, or rather you might be thinking, you're doing great in a specific area of practice, but the matter analytics would give you the actual information of where you have made a better revenue up to point percentage. So that way you'll understand the insights of your own practice. So this way you'll be able to ensure you can achieve the quality of the business, achieve your better quality in your practice, overall matter management, your client management, and especially it will help you to compare different clients, matter, revenue, expenses, margins. There's so much that goes behind it. So please make sure all of you have some time to go through all of those. Now, many of you are using uLaw, let's say some of you don't, but what are the advantages behind mobile docketing? I know that, yes, of course, I do docketing. That's how I can invoice my client. There has to be some sort of docket in there into the client's matter. Otherwise, we cannot raise an invoice. But What are these docketing? Are these available on your, on just on the platform? No, but if you're using uLaw, again, it's available on both iOS and Android. So you can just dock it on the fly. I really prefer doing this because one, there's no way you will miss a conversation, correspondences. You can docket them. You can, whether it's simple telephone conversation, you can just docket it with the time, email conversations, chats, other correspondences can be designated, can be added into the docket, and it can be used as a tool to expedite your billing, or it can be also done to give your clients information and matter details on the go, access it on the go. That way, mobile docketing, accessing your mobile app for uLaw or whatever other system that you're using, it should be really beneficial, and it gives you data of your client in fingertips. That's very, very important. So you will be able to analyze your business insights even during your off hours, right? Because let's say I'm always either busy in the court, or you're in the client meetings, you're in hearing, drafting, you're always busy doing something, but you don't have time to know your business insights because, again, you don't want to sit in front of the system. So you end up analyzing all of these on your mobile. Why not? I have everything in my analytics in my phone and mobile app. I can just always easily access, understand the billing and other financial, details at your convenient time. You don't have to, sit in front of the system to do that literally. That is the level of technology today all of us are using, and we prefer also. So that makes a big change or shift in your lifestyle. So I encourage, for the ones who don't have a mobile app, please do download a mobile app for uLaw, for your own system, and try to use the mobile docketing. There, it's just a duplicate of your own account in the phone. So it's technically going to show you similar data. So you can see your clients' details, their matter details, their dockets, you've had a recent conversation, but the uLaw app would basically prompt you whether you want to add them. So these are certain techniques that would help you enhance your better management of your matter, because otherwise you would wait till you get back to your desk after your call you have to remember. It's a lot of things that goes behind it. So instead, if you're using a mobile app, you just take out your phone and record the docket just right there immediately when you're done with this telephone conversation. Bill it for 6 minutes and give a description and click on the check mark, and you're already done. And you also know what is pending from this client, what the client owes you, how much more you want to raise as an invoice. All of these details are also seen very much under it. And around that, of course, every other software has its own benefits. Now, the benefits of legal accounting and a practice management software in general allows you to practice from anywhere, first of all. With today's technology, mostly everything is cloud-based. You can practice anywhere. You don't even need to remember to take your system along with you, as long as you can, you have a system. Could be any system, your personal, your office, your assistants, yours, your wife, your husband, your spouse, whatever. Children, any device you can, as long as you have your username, password, you can access from anywhere. So it's so simple that it allows you to access, of course, the authentication. There are different level of authentications that needs to be done. But once it's done, you're all in good, so you can access from anywhere. It's all about being more efficient in practice. You're able to maximize your time, and you're able to use as many features as you can, which will help you to serve your clients better, which will in turn show a better practice management, show a better matter management, make sure that the total cost of ownership is seen, where your overheads are reduced because you're able to invest more, less time and more of your efforts into the practice management. In long run, you will see the total cost of ownership will be significantly less, because initially you will find it increasing, but as you start maximizing the capacity and the efficiency, you will start seeing it, the overall cost gets reduced. And ultimately, it is all for making sure you're compliant with Law Society. The practice management system allows you to prepare all the documents you need, and you're able to generate these documents that you need for your Law Society purposes. Now, if you're all not a uLaw user, I'd request you to try our 30-day trial to understand how everything works. There's a free 30-day trial. You can sign up from our website, uLaw.io. I have about 10 to 15 minutes, which I'd like to use towards showing you all the necessary matter management that we were talking about, necessary documents that you would like to, you'd all need to have for your better practice management. Now, before I go ahead, I have quite a few chats that I see here. I would love to ask all of you. One of the viewers asked to go over a previous slide. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure which slide. If one of you could, Steph, if you could tell me around which time I was in. I cannot hear well. I'm using a headset, and the echoing and distortion is the problem. Viewer number 25, if you're looking for something specific, I request you to, come on a chat separately, or let me know. I'd be happy to, give the details. Many of you have asked whether it's professional CPD hours. uLaw only gives professional CPD hours. We don't give substantiated CPD hours. For the ones who are regularly attending our webinars, please note that uLaw gives that only professionalism CPD hours. And today's topic is on matter management. We have about 1 hour of professionalism CPD credits. Viewer number 37, how do I delete an entry of income entered in error? I probably have to deal with this separately since it's a CPD session. I'll have to work on the topic. But viewer number 37, if you could give us your email ID, I'd be happy to contact you and help with this issue. And I'm still not sure what link. Thank you so much, viewer number 37, uLaw. It's nice. Thank you. Viewer number 25, thank you so much. I'm not sure if you can send us an email, all the support queries, I can take it from there. Viewer number 25. Okay, you're having audio issues. I think it might be you. Maybe everyone else can hear me well, I guess. Almost to the end of the session. I should have asked this much earlier. Sorry about that. I was told by my team that everyone could hear me well. I hope everyone could. If not, apologize for that. Okay, great. Thank you so much for confirming. Yeah, viewer number 25, please try the phone audio. It would work better. All right. So, okay, so we have 10 minutes left here, and I'd like to take this opportunity to show all of you what are these documents that we were talking about, the method, the document, everything for a client matter. I'm just taking a random matter in here, or just go in here. let's say I create a new client here. Okay, so let's call this client's name as there are some important points when you have a client, when you're adding a client, to keep in mind. This forms part of course, client intake, but still part of the matter management. Make sure that the client source of contact is being added in here. Make sure that the details, addresses, their personal information, everything is added in here. And of course, you're doing a conflict check as part of the first step towards being compliant. Conflict check is completed. Once the conflict check is completed, then you know whether there is a conflict or not with this client. If there is no conflict, simple, please go ahead and start creating a matter. And a matter is created very first day when you are starting the information of this client. There is no potential conflict. You're very, very happy, and you go back, start creating the matter for this client simply by clicking on matter. Once you're into the matter, you will be able to give certain details again for this file, for this matter. Let's say this is like a break and open, speeding ticket, whatever provincial offenses of the area of practice that you're doing. There are about 3 or 4 area of practices, but you want to make sure you're mentioning the area of practice. If there's a code file number, anything that you want to describe about the matter. We try to get so much information at their first few steps. Because the client intake is done, then the matter is being opened. We want to have as much as information as possible so you have good clarity at the time you open a matter. You know, this is your hourly rate. You want to charge your client $250. Your assistance rate is $125. If you don't have an assistant, don't panic. It's not a mandatory field. It's something that we've given as an option for you to use for respectively. So you're saving this matter. By saving this matter gets created. You're number 25. I see that you're having some problem, but I'm glad you're able to, you'll be able to see this later because the recording will be available. If not, you can always email us on support@uLawPractice.com. We'll be happy to answer your questions. Christian, can we add area of practice in the menu? Absolutely, yes. Under accounts, you can see there's something called add new account. So by default, we have a certain area of practices, but let's say the area of practice that you see here is not there. You can very well go to accounts, add new account. This is for your legal area, right? Legal revenue. So under add new account and under revenue, under, of course, legal work, let's say I add a new area of practice here. You can save it and it will be shown under matter, under the respective area of practice as a new area of practice. Yes, you can absolutely add it from add new account, revenue, legal work. All right. So the matter has been created. Once the matter has been created, remember the steps that we discussed, like the client intake is done, matter file has been created, retainer letter is given to them, and the retainer agreement needs to carry certain points. Everything has to be determined at this stage or a little before this, actually, when you're intaking the client, or even before that when you're starting your practice. You should know what are the types of retainer agreement you want to prepare, what type of retainer you'd like to collect, would you like to, the method of payment. There's so many other things involved in here as we discussed. you're able to elaborate on all of these in the retainer letter. You send so there is this Law Society compliance document checklist where you can make sure to download client ID verification. So this is done whether it's for an individual or an organization. So you do this, and when this is done, you're able to, of course, most of the details are entered in here automatically as you're entering it in your portal or the software you're using, and then you can get this detail. And then client intake form is done. You're going to keep that in the folder, make sure the details of the client are entered in properly. These are done. And then you just go on in this list. And as you keep going, you'll be able to do. And we have made your life much simpler saying, okay, these set of documents are client intake. And remember, we were talking about quarterly documents. If it's an ongoing matter, what are the things I have to send my client, like statement of activity, settlement statement. Many of the times we forget to send these as they are not like, revenue generating documents such as invoices. So I would say try to take a little bit additional care. These are going to be helpful for you. This makes a difference. This is where your clients like your style of working, and they would, the refer a friend or repetitive clients. All these are with the style of working. Sometimes I feel so. Try to utilize or maximize the documents that are available here. It's two-in-one. It enhances your practice at the same time. It keeps you compliant with Law Society, so why not? And we've also given other documents here such as non-engagement letter. What if I don't engage with the client, ghost client? What do I do? Disposition letter, closing letter. Closing letter is nice when you're winding up the work. Send them a nice letter saying, we are concluding here. In addition to this, you can outline a few details of this, and everything can be entered in here with your signature and other things. When you're done, you can, of course, you start docketing. You're at every stage, you've added your own documents. The dockets are here, the disbursements are here, everything is added in nicely. Invoices are raised here. You have different styles of invoicing. If you've lost an invoice, you can always come here and reprint. I don't know many of you know it or not. You can reprint your invoices from the past. You can backdate it. If you've missed an event, to enter an event, you can enter it and backdate it. And there's also receipts here which are available for you if the client pays a retainer receipt. And then there are other things such as compliance documents that we saw. So there are statements, invoices, receipts, compliance. So I know many of you would access invoice tabs, maybe some of you receipts. I don't know how many of you go into compliance tab. Even if you go into compliance, maybe, you do client ID, retainer letter, or conflict check. But there's so much more here. I'd request all of you to go through. And there are other letters, general letters, court forms in here. This is where additional party comes into picture. So where you get matter events are where you add dockets, disbursements are retainers added here. Rates are your hourly rates. If it keeps changing, if it's an ongoing file for more than few months or few weeks, or suddenly you see you're going to increase the price, you can always come here, enter the new rate, and start billing your client under the new rate. While all of those done, you can go ahead and let's say you're adding additional party, you add the additional party. Of course, you're adding the additional party here from the contact first. Remember, we are talking about add new contact, whether they're vendor, coworker, plaintiff, defendant. You enter all those information, and you will be able to add them under the respective matter as an additional party. So that would help you to bring up the necessary details of the respective additional party under the court forms. And Last but not the least, I know this is part of the document management webinars that we do, but there is a place, I don't want to elaborate too much on this and show you how it works, but I at least want to bring to all of you notice that it is important to have all the documents stored on the drive connected to uLaw so that the respective matters documents are available here for you to always come and see. You don't have to go and dig into your folders or your physical folders or your computer. Instead, have them under the respective matters. So that way you have everything in here, and you'll be able to take a look at all your clients' information in one go. So there's so much of documents you get generated, or you generate rather, and you lose a track of it is not worth. So make sure that you have them nicely organized in here in this respective documents tab, and you'll be able to access it at any time. So other than that, in the same matter tab, there is document generation on the right-hand side top, where there are more reports under reports, legal aid, timelines, timesheets, other letters that you might want to go through and keep a record of it as it is necessary from time to time. So I think we're almost at top of the hour. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you to take a look at uLaw, to follow certain guidelines and requirements laid out by Law Society, making sure that all of you are able to have an efficient matter management. As this is like the starting point. The first few things of client matter management forms a base towards a better financial management, because I feel if you manage your matter properly, all the numericals or all the financial that takes place during this period will be in turn managed well. So try and ensure that all of you incorporate a few points that we discussed in our session today. And for the ones who have missed a few slides at the beginning, the recording will be available as early as Monday, and you'll be able to get a better idea. So viewer number 37, viewer number 25, please email us for your queries, and we'll be happy to assist you post the session. Viewer number 14, thank you so much for your feedback. We're happy to know that you're enjoying. Christian's question, I meant adding a new practice area not already in the drop-down menu. For example, child welfare. Okay, I'm going to take a minute to show this. Might be useful to all of you. So let's say, Christian, there are a few area of practices here. Right now, in this one, I cannot see child welfare anywhere. So here, this is what I was in fact referring to, but thank you for giving me an example so I can show all of you. So whenever I'm adding a new matter and I find that respective area of practice that I'm working in is not available in the default one given by uLaw, never mind, you can always create a new area of practice by going into accounts, by going into add new account. Now let's say you have a new bank account other than what uLaw has default given you. Obviously, you go into add new account and assets and add a new bank. Likewise, if you're trying to add a new area of practice, which is generating revenue to you, you go into revenue, you go into legal work. Let's say I add child welfare here. And I save it. When I go into matters, you will be able to see that the new area of practice has been added in here. Just have to click on edit, and you see child welfare right here. Is that clear, Christian? I hope I've answered your question, but I would love to give you a call. We don't have your last name or your email here. please, in case you need further information, email us on support@ulawpractice.com. All right, so since it's almost 3:05 and I want to keep the recording a little short for all of our viewers later, so I'm going to stop recording, but I'm happy to take more questions from all of you because it's a nice way we could answer as many queries as you all have. I'm going to quickly stop recording here. I want to thank all of you once again for coming in this afternoon and attending this webinar. It means a lot seeing so many of you coming in and showing your support. Of course, getting 1 hour CPD, free CPD is really nice. So thank you and keep continuing. I think we have a CPD session again on 31st of March, if I'm not wrong. Let me see what is the topic. So next week, there is a new topic on how to use uLaw to file Law Society annual reports. We're going to have agenda there soon, before next week. And end of this month, we have disbursements demystified. Wow, that's a nice topic. So please try and attend the session. I would say next 2 sessions are really interesting and useful as well. So try and see if all of you can attend the session. But thank you all once again and have a lovely weekend and a great afternoon. Talk to you all soon.